Sofort ass.
A bit good. There you go. Stand by and try it again.
They hold normal jobs during the day, and at night they go and raid labs because they're so adamant about animal rights that they will do anything.
To me, the terrorists are in the labs. They cause real terror. They cause fear. They cause death. They mutilate.
If we don't use animals for research, no drug will be tested. Do you really want to be the first person to get a drug?
Black. One. It's all about Mike Hume.
He's been an image maker, in a way, but what he really is, he's a strategist. Medical breakthrough in this century has come as a result of experiments on animals. The polio vaccine you were given as a child, the antibiotics you take for an infection, the insulin you need if you're a diabetic. The federal government spends $2 billion a year funding that research, but a growing minority in this country is saying no more. Groups once devoted to just protecting animals from abuse are now demanding that animals be given the same rights as humans. The most militant among them are using violence to get their way. It's not a question of who will win in the end, one medical researcher told us, but of how much damage there will be before it's over. It was a Saturday night. We had been driven in the back of a windowless van to an empty house and told to wait there. 5 hours later, a group of masked men and women arrived, lugging 2 steel cages. Inside, there were 4 baby chimpanzees. They had just been stolen from a federally funded lab in Maryland. The chimps were each worth $30,000 and had been earmarked for AIDS research. The humans were now wanted by the FBI.
Once you've seen how animals suffer in laboratories, when you've seen them rocking back and forth in their isolation cages going insane, once you've seen those things, the risk is pretty irrelevant. At least these 4 will have a happy life. At least these 4 won't go insane.
In the last 7 years, underground groups have attacked more than 30 animal research labs. They've stolen thousands of animals, destroyed millions of dollars in property, and effectively halted some medical research. Last year in California, they stopped it before it ever began by torching a lab still under construction. The faceless groups go by many names: the Animal Liberation Front, Band of Mercy, True Friends, but they are all linked to one person. This is the voice of a movement that has backed researchers up against the wall.
They're building labs underground, and they're spending money on security systems, and they're hiring more guards, and they're writing articles in their medical journals about how to secure your facility. What is this? Is it war? I guess it is.
Ingrid Newkirk is the most revered and feared animal rights leader in the country.
PETA, can I help you?
It may not look like a war room, but tucked away in a small warehouse outside Washington, D.C., is the headquarters for People for the Ethical Treatment of Animals, or PETA, one of the most radical among scores of animal rights groups. A former stockbroker and deputy sheriff, Newkirk leads a dedicated band of volunteers who fight within the law, but also support the underground and share the same objective: to stop the use of animals in food, clothing, and biomedical research.
When one talks about a movement, you talk about an awful lot of people with diverse ideas. And there is a common goal, but people pursue it in different ways. And some people write letters and some people blow up labs.
Do you see, some people would hear that and go, well, that's why she's a fanatic. That's why she's a radical. That's why she's dangerous.
If it's fanatical to say, break the chains, open the cages, free the slaves, that's the way it is.
These people acted as vandals, as terrorists, in trying to intimidate us, destroying government property and wasting taxpayers' money.
Last year, the Band of Mercy left its calling card on this federal research center in Maryland. They stole cats and pigs, claiming the animals had been treated inhumanely. Dr. Ronald Fair is the center's director.
This is a strategy that is being used for us not to do research on animals. and it affects us and perhaps thousands of other research facilities around the country.
While the underground fights with crowbars and spray paint, PETA is making real headway on the public relations front. It now boasts over 250,000 members who contribute $2 million a year. Mass mailings, T-shirts, and gala benefits courting the establishment are all part of the campaign.
We are accused a lot of appealing to emotion, and that's damn right. We do appeal to emotion. These ads really do focus in on the exact situation that's happening in laboratories. I mean, if you liked pulling the wings off flies as a kid, you may be cut out for a career in animal experimentation. I think that is a real go-getter. And of course, imagine having your body left to science while you're still in it. If we've got one opportunity to go into these people's minds, we want to hit them with the most direct means possible.
The message is hammered home with images that play on our natural affection for animals, while depicting all animal experimentation as torture. Sometimes it is. In 1984, the Animal Liberation Front broke into this university lab and stole tapes of baboons being subjected to head injuries without proper sedation. The underground passed on the tapes to PETA, who used them to publicly pressure the government to close down the facility and enact stricter animal welfare laws. But for PETA, it's never enough.
It's an absolute disgrace that the ALF brings out of the labs more information than the government inspectors. The terrorists are in the labs. They cause real terror. They cause fear. They cause death. They mutilate. They punch the time clock, and they do something that makes somebody scream, and then they go home. That's terrorism. That's real, and that's every day, and that's all over the country.
Are all of these people really involved in a vast conspiracy to mass torture? That's very difficult to believe.
Dr. Richard Malvin is a professor of physiology at the University of Michigan.
I've spent 30 years of my life in laboratories, and I don't see abuse. It's a rarity, a very rare phenomenon.
But what isn't rare anymore are all the locks and alarms. Millions of dollars that could have gone into research now go into protecting it.
The biomedical community has always shared the care and concern for animals that other people have. We are not monsters.
Would you say that this animal is suffering at all?
Not that I can tell. As a matter of fact, it's lived a fairly long and healthy life, and yet has yielded some very valuable information for us. Nobody wishes to suffer when they needn't suffer. Nobody wants to get multiple sclerosis and die a slow, lingering death. They want it cured, and it will take animals to cure it.
Of the millions of animals used for research, over 90% are rats and mice. But some experiments require larger animals. Each year, thousands of people suffer permanent brain damage as a result of heart attacks. In the lab of Dr. Louis DeLacy, a dog's heart has just been stopped.
Pressure's flowing through the low.
Few researchers who work with large animals would allow our camera inside their labs, for fear the images could be misunderstood. DeLacy chose to because he believes that in order to save human lives, he must sacrifice the dog.
At this point, the animal is technically dead. You can see on the monitor, his heart is no longer beating. He's no longer generating blood pressure. So we are intentionally delaying the restart of the heart to mimic a situation in which it takes, say, 10 minutes for the emergency medical team to come to the site and restart the heart.
Doctor, it's so hard for me to remove myself from the fact it's a dog on the table and put myself in your position, because I think of dogs and cats as things that you pet.
These are not pets, ma'am. No, ma'am. That's right. You know, pet is something that you take home and care for. Animals that are abandoned to the pound, 98% of them are euthanized by the pound. Something on the order of 2% of those animals come here and are put to good use.
And if the animal rights activists were to say that you can't use animals anymore for this kind of research, what would happen to the research?
That would clearly be a tragedy of the first order.
Why?
Well, because there's an extraordinary number of people out there that suffer irreversible brain damage simply because this area has not been explored. The experiments have not been done. And the pressure on the system is such that a lot of young people feel that the opportunity to do it won't be there with all the pressure from the activist groups.
If we don't use animals for research, no drug will be tested. Do you really want to be the first person to get a drug? I don't think so.
Am I God and the rest of the animal kingdom is just trash? We're just one individual, they're individuals, and if you go out and you look for other ways to accomplish your goal, you'll find them. It's cheap and it's dirty to say, I don't care about them. They're just animals. Let's use them. It'll benefit me.
But do you equate a rat with a boy?
Well, the boy feels, the rat feels, the rabbit feels, the chimpanzee feels.
But if you put the rat next to the boy?
You mustn't, any more than you must put your child next to mine and say, choose. We have to choose it all.
If you look out that window, you can see Mott Children's Hospital. I won't equate the patients in our children's hospital with a rat. I cannot do that.
Andrew Bossy is too young to understand the moral debate. All he knows is that he has cancer, and after 4 weeks of chemotherapy, he's well enough to go home with his parents.
Well, what do you think Andrew's condition would be if this treatment weren't available?
I'm not too sure he would have been with us.
Would the treatment have become available without animal research?
No.
You know, I pray that these people who fight desperately to get these animals out of these experiments, you know, I just pray that they never have to go through an experience like we have to understand how important it is to use these animals.
But to the activists, there is no turning back, because they too believe they are saving lives. The chimps they stole that Saturday night have never been found, and neither have they.
It's not a hobby, it's not a tea party. It's really the beginning of a long march towards rights. There may be some very unpleasant moments in that struggle. There may be more damage to property. It may be that there will be more Animal Liberation Front-style raids. If you try to effect change through the system, and the system tells you to go fly a kite, people don't forget, they don't go away, and they don't stop thinking of the animals.